I guess I should get a pair of sunglasses, huh? So I'm not staring directly in the sun. How do people usually do this? One moment. Hello, I'm Jennifer and welcome to my garden. I am a chaotic neutral mechanical engineer who is really into books and wants to talk about gardening. Today, what I'd really like to talk about is growing your own fruit trees from seed. And I guess kind of the benefits of that, why you might want to do it, how easy it is, and yes, some of the logistics of growing your own fruit trees from seed. I moved into this house in March of 2020. It is now March of 2024, so I feel like it's a good time to see what has happened within that span and see how much this place has grown in terms of the trees that I planted here less than 4 years ago. So this here is a peach tree. This is one of the first trees that I've planted. It would have been planted into either a pot with soil or directly into the ground. I probably put it in a pot with some dirt and left it out in the garden for an entire winter until it came up. So I might put a handful of peach pits, maybe like 4 in a pot, and see what comes up. So that's what would have happened with this tree here. So that would have been in the winter of 2020, and then we would have had our first shoot of a tree in the spring of 2021. And then that would have gone into this spot in the ground once I knew that it was a tree, basically. Put that in here, and then it's been there ever since. This little guy produced fruit last year for the first time. We got maybe like 10 peaches probably off of it. They are not what you would get at a store. They're still fairly large, not like super huge or anything, but the main thing that was different about them is that they weren't soft when they were ripe. They were like a little bit harder when they were ripe. So I had a hard time telling that they were ripe. My dog knew that they were ripe, and she kept wanting to eat them. And I was like, no, I don't think they're ripe yet. And then eventually I was like, oh yeah, actually I think she's right. I think they are ripe and I should probably pick them. So that's my little peach tree here. So now we have two trees here. We have this one and we have this one a little bit further behind. Now these are both apricot trees. I planted the pits as well. We do have like an old apricot tree right up here. Now this one did bloom, but it bloomed kind of early when it was still really rainy, and I'm not sure how well the pollination actually happened. So I might expect some fruit off of this guy, but maybe not this year. And then this one didn't flower at all. And he also kind of got tipped over a little bit because I think the ground was so soft that he just kind of got tipped. So those are my 2 apricots. They're starting to have leaves at this point, but they're still quite small. Same exact process for how you germinate the peach pit for the apricot pits. I put them out in a pot over winter. They get that cold stratification from the winter cold, and then this is what happens. I'll be honest, this doesn't look like really much of anything. This is an apple tree that I grew from seed, and very likely I put the apple seeds in the fridge to cold stratify them. That's what I'm pretty sure I did for all of the apple trees. Many fruit trees do need to go through the process of cold stratification, which means they will be dormant throughout the winter, and they'll only start to grow in the spring when it's warm enough. So they require some amount of time being cold. So the seeds have this like time bomb of like, okay, I need to be cold for this long, and once I'm cold for that long, then I'll start to grow. So you can do that by putting them in your fridge, and it's like an easy button, I guess. So I would put them in a like not wet, but like slightly damp napkin, and put that in a sandwich bag and put it in the bottom of the fridge for, I don't know, like a month or more. I don't know how long it takes, but it would just be like check it every couple weeks maybe. And then eventually they'll pop out a little sad white root kind of thing. And then that's when you pop it into a pot and let it go on. So that's how I started my apple trees. I feel like apple trees are a little bit harder to grow than the pits because the pits are large and the plants that come out of them are large. For apple trees, they're so small, so the very first seedling tree is very small, so you have to take care of it. Apple trees take longer to fruit as well. This guy doesn't have any leaves or any sign of life, so hopefully it comes to life soon. Also have had a problem with worms. I don't know really what the technical term is for this thing, but it's just like a little worm that burrows into the base of the tree and will eat through it completely, and then the top of the tree dies fully. That's happened to 2 of my seedling apple trees. But they do recover from the roots, and because I'm not growing on a rootstock, I'm growing directly from seed. It's fine. I don't have to be worried about losing my fancy tree at the top. What the hell is happening over here? I don't know if you can hear that. Okay, genuinely guys, I don't know if you can hear this, but it is some of the most annoying sound happening. There's like a rooster call and then like horns. So the DJing has happened already. It's like 9 o'clock. I'm not sure if you're gonna be able to see this. It's really hard for me to see it on the screen, but this is an apple tree, and this was my largest apple tree, but it had that little worm, and so it has grown up from this much larger initial base, and this is what I'm left with. So, you know, we're gonna work with what we have. I have had one tree die completely from this little worm at the base of the plant, which I can show you as well. But because I'm already over here, let's look at this plum tree. So this is pretty exciting. Let me mosey on over and you can get an idea for how big it is, maybe if you can even see me. And there are still flowers on this thing, which is really exciting. And it's like fully in leaf, which is also really exciting. So hello, I'm in this tree now. This is a plum tree, and this was also grown from seed. It is going to be like a wild plum because I have wild plum seeds. But wild plums are pretty useful. They make really, really good vinegar. This thing is doing really well, and it's just really nice to have a tree over here. This one is going to be a little bit harder to see because it doesn't have as many leaves on it. But this is also an apricot, and it seems to be doing pretty well. I haven't been able to taste any of the apricots because none of them have flowered until this year. So this year will be the first year that I can have the apricots. And hopefully they got pollinated. Again, the apricots bloomed really early. I have to trim them down so that I don't get to be so... I basically want all of the trees to be a little bit small so that I can pick all the fruit and so that they're not like overwhelming to maintain. So I'll have to trim this guy down a little bit at the top, but this thing is just doing so wonderful, and I do expect to get some fruit off of this year as well. So I'm excited. It's loud as fuck out here, guys. This here is also another apple tree, and I guess I'm really excited to see the apples because apples are super, super diverse. Like you have no idea what you're gonna get when you plant an apple seed, which is something that a lot of people are concerned about. Like they don't want to plant apple trees from seed because they might get an apple that's not really good. And it's, I guess, pretty common to get something more like a crab apple. But I don't know, I think it's so cool to have that variety and be able to introduce that variety into your life. I don't know if any of you are like this, but I know for me, I'm always really curious about things that I just have never had. So So, or like places I've never been, like at the grocery store, you see those double doors and you're like, I want to know what is behind those doors. Or like wanting to know the experience behind the normal like consumer experience. And I feel like that about food as well, where I want to know about the food that we don't know about. So this whole idea of being able to grow your own fruit and then you get to eat a fruit that nobody's eaten before, I don't know. I think the people who have those feelings will understand what I'm saying, and other people just won't because it's not something that they care about or appeals to them. But I've always been really interested about like the foraging aspect of eating food. There's so much food that we don't eat from grocery stores. There's just so many things that are like really good foods that they don't sell. So let's go over to the failed apple tree. So I think this might highlight the importance of mulch. These two guys are in the middle of this lawn basically, and right here is where this tree got wormed. And actually, I think I might see a little bit of growth. So this might come back. But what I was gonna say is that I have tried to mulch this, but it's minimally successful because it's just a small area. And compared to the other areas in the garden, they're like really, really mulched and they can really retain moisture. And so the trees do really well. So let me show you how poorly these trees are doing. See how small they are? I mean, they're just itty bitty compared to the trees I have elsewhere. I think most of that has to do with mulch. So again, I don't know if you can hear all of that, but it's very annoying. So this we have here is a loquat seedling. We have a lot of loquat trees in this area, and I'm able to collect these loquat seeds from just fruit that's fallen off of the trees into the sidewalk. I cannot believe the crazy music that I'm hearing right now. I really hope you can't hear it. It's insane. It's genuinely insane. So anyway, and now I kind of hope you can, because what in the world? So anyway, I've had not great luck keeping the loquats alive through the really, really harsh summers, but this one is doing okay, and I think it's because it has a little bit of shelter from the sun with the other plants around it. So this is one that I still have alive, and I have one other one in the front yard. I have quite a bit more fruit trees in the front yard, but I'm not going to go out there. This is a plum. This is really small, and this is, again, more of a wild plum. I'm really excited to see what that's going to do, because we do have some wild plums in the area where some of them are like little orange, like really tart. Some of them are like the cherry plums, and some of them are just like green plums. So I feel like there's a lot of diversity in the plums that I'm excited to see what we get. There's also some like bird planted fruit trees that I just leave, and also nut trees. Like they really plant the pecans, so I might have to cut those down at some point. This is an avocado, and yeah, it's really exciting. I also have lemongrass in here, so both lemongrass and avocado will get damaged by frost. So there is some damage, but I have found that this spot in my yard is really well protected by my patio cover and also a fence. So these tend to do relatively well with regards to frost protection. So I'm going to plant this here permanently, and I have another one to show you. I think you can tell with these spider plants that this area doesn't get damaged by the frost. So this little avocado, I planted a pit here. After we had an avocado, I just planted it straight in the soil, and now it's growing okay because it has never frosted over here. So hoping that this guy does really well this year. This like March music is genuinely insane. I think this is a peach. It might be like a nectarine or something, some sort of peach. And this is growing straight out of my compost. This here is an old cement sink that we use as a compost bin at this point, and I have a tree growing out of it. So it's going to be like a cute little planter compost bin, and it's doing really well. So I'm really happy about this little accident. When you make your own compost, when you have like a lot of wildlife and like birds and stuff like that, you end up getting things planted that are really cool that you didn't even expect. It's such an exciting part of having a garden like this. That's all I have for y'all today. Like I mentioned, I do have other fruit trees in the front yard that I have planted from seed. More apples, more peaches, more apricots, more plums. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I've had be a success. I did get a date palm, and that's still in a pot in my front yard, and I have to figure out if it's a male or female date palm. I have another loquat in the front yard. I've had really poor luck actually getting citrus trees to grow past the seedling stage. I had a grapefruit that got maybe a couple inches tall and then it died, because those are really sensitive to both the cold and like sun. So I had a really hard time keeping those alive, but I will try some more. I do have an orange tree and a lemon tree that are store-bought. And then cherries, I will say. Cherries are the other thing that I haven't had wonderful luck germinating for whatever reason. So I did also buy 2 cherry trees from a nursery. So maybe with the seeds from those cherries, I might have better luck. Not really sure. I'm not sure if you'll agree based on what I've shown you today, but it is now the 4th year of just having this property. And so it's about the 3rd year of having these trees in the ground. From seedling, they are already producing flowers, which means they'll be producing fruit this year. So I don't think 3 years is a very long time investment for fruit trees to produce fruit. So I don't think it's a big deal to grow your fruit trees from seed if you want fruit right away, especially if you're working with like peaches, apricots, plums. So if you get a mix of like longer term fruit trees like pears and stuff. Oh, I do have a pear in the front yard as well, but it's like really, really short. It's growing super slow. So I think if that's something that you're concerned about, like how long it's gonna take, when you're planting your first garden and you're doing your annual garden, just also plant some fruit trees, like from seed. It'll be super easy. They're super easy. And for me, one of the critical aspects was getting more shade in my garden because it just is blisteringly hot. If you're concerned about the quality of the fruit, you can always graft. Like if you don't like what you ended up with, you can graft onto the tree. And what I have noticed is that I've had better luck with the fruit trees that I've grown than I have with the ones that I've planted. That when I plant a fruit tree, it tends to take a while for it to like get adjusted to the environment. And when you grow one from seed, it's like adjusted right away and it does really well right away, unless like the example of those 2 trees that don't have very much mulch. You might have something that just doesn't do well ever because the conditions aren't super great. So I hope you enjoyed this. Consider sharing it, liking. That's about it. I'll talk to you again soon.